Did you prank him good, Mr. Norrius?
Aye, that we did, lad.
Awesome!
Chog Norrius, his exploits ever glorious. Chog Norrius, returns again victorious. Who bests the Romans with his might, whose strike cannot be matched. Who brought victory on this night and claimed the biggest land. Chog Norrius.
In November of 2022, I was joined by Chog Norrius himself on the Ultimate Unofficial VeggieTales podcast. Actor Henry Haggard. We've kept in touch ever since. I sent him a voice message just the other day thanking him for the impact he's had, because what a fantastic guy. I mean, for real. His generosity with his time and knowledge, it seems to have no end. Just a little while ago, he signed me a copy of Mac Larry, and then later again in 2023, I interviewed him again, and we talked even longer. I really appreciate him helping to make the podcast great, especially when I was so early on in my interviewing career, especially in the 2022 one. He really carried that conversation and helped us have a fantastic final product. He's a fantastic guy. A lot of great stuff to share. So buckle up for over an hour and a half of the legendary Henry Haggard, updated for 2025.
If you love your veggies and want more to know, then I've got for you a spectacular show. We be giving the facts in this lyrical rhyme, bringing in guests quite a lot of the time. If you search for your hairbrush like cheeseburgers too, then I'm happy to say we've got a show for you.
It's going great. How are you, Finn?
I'm doing good. So happy to have you on the show. This is one of the episodes I watched for years, and I've always liked it. And just recently I kind of looked into, some of the behind the scenes stuff of the episode, because I've always loved the voice for Chog Norrius. I wonder who's doing the voice, So I've been looking into your stuff and it's really impressive.
Thank you.
Can we hear a little bit of Chog before we even get going?
Sure. They called me up, the VeggieTales people, and they said, can you do a Scottish dialect? And I said, sure I can.
I love it. That makes me so happy. So, how did you get into the acting industry to begin with? Like, this is, obviously pre-VeggieTales. You've done a lot more than just Mac Larry. So how did you first break into this?
I was a streamlined kid. So when I was 5 years old, I was watching old television shows that you might not even have heard of. But Bewitched, which was a movie.
Bewitched. I love Bewitched. Yes, Darren and Samantha. Oh yeah.
And I was like 5 when those were coming out, and I watched them, and I just went, I don't know if I wanted to be magic or if I just wanted to be on TV, but I said I want to do that, and my parents were like, well, that's not real, when you're 5, you don't understand. But I said I want to be an actor when I realized what it was. So I was telling people that as early as like 6th grade. I said I want to be an actor. It sometimes vacillated between that and stand-up comic, but I did a little stand-up comedy way back in the 80s, and it was not for me.
No.
But I started doing what a lot of you young people are still doing, is you get involved with a school play. And I had a couple of mentors who pulled me aside, and I sing as well. Excuse me. So I would be, if they had needed somebody to sing, and I wasn't shy. I was the youngest of 4 children. And so I was often put front and center to entertain my siblings. Being the youngest and a little bit of a cut up. So it was kind of a natural bent. When I go back, I didn't realize that till later in my 20s, 30s. I was looking at old high school yearbooks where people had signed, and they said, good luck in your career as an actor. And I was going, wow, I don't remember telling people that I was going to be an actor. But once I discovered that you could major in theater, I signed up at the University of Kentucky. I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. And I signed up at the University of Kentucky, mostly to get my mom off my back. I really didn't want to go to college. And I started school, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I sat down in a class with Professor Wallace Briggs, and he did a quote from Shakespeare. And I had read Shakespeare, of course, in high school. But when I heard him perform it, I was mesmerized and bitten by the bug, so to speak. And so I knew that was my destiny. This is something I fell into. And I unfortunately have very few other skills.
Oh no, that singing though, Mac Larry was so good. When he sings, I like to break things.
Yes, to break things.
So good.
Well, it's interesting because the VeggieTales, what happened with me with VeggieTales was interesting because it kind of fell in my lap. I didn't technically audition for it, although I did. I mean, but it was I got an email from a friend of a friend who worked with Mike and those guys, and Mike Noricki is the person that I mostly knew. That's actually, that was a voice of Larry the Cucumber and etc. Lots of other voices. They do a lot of their own voices, but apparently they weren't comfortable with Scottish dialect, so they called me up. Sent me an email, and I didn't talk to anybody until I showed up at the studio, which was so interesting. It was one of the first gigs like that because it showed up in my email. They asked me if I would record. They gave me like just a little treatment of the script, like a page and a half, and it was all Chog Norrius and the songs, but I didn't know how the songs went, and it was different voices in there, so I got cocky and I recorded all the voices, all in Scottish, but different Scottish dialects, different characters. And I made up music to the thing. And I sent it to them. And 10 minutes later, I got a reply back and said, you're on.
I love that. That's awesome.
And the rest is history. I showed up, Paragon Studios, I think is where they recorded those back in the day. I'm not sure if they're still there or not. That's over in Cool Springs, not too far from my house, 20 miles or so. Really nice studio, really. And here's the thing, I'm an old guy, so I really, VeggieTales is not my generation. I had friends who had children, so the first time and the only time I ever saw VeggieTales was sort of in the peripheral of, children sitting and watching TV. What is that? And I watched and thought it was clever and funny, and didn't think much else about it until that. So once I booked it, I had to sit down and watch a bunch of VeggieTales.
There you go. Just binge it.
Yes, and it's easy to do.
It's a good show. I've heard so many people, adults, who say it's very easy to watch, compared to other children's shows, and no hate on the other children's shows, obviously, but it's. They
really work hard on their scripts. They're extremely professional. When I recorded, I think I recorded, and I did 3 different episodes. There's Chog was the main one, and then I was Oliver Onion, and I don't remember which episode or what season, but I'm also Oliver Onion.
Oliver Onion. I should know that name. I should know that.
My resume.
Let me look that up.
Oliver Onion. And then I was the Christmas special that same year, and I don't remember what year it was. I was the narrator, but I got preempted because they got a celebrity voice to do that. And what was so sweet was they called me and they were so apologetic. And understand, I still got paid for my work that I did with them. But they called me and said, "You're not going to be on the Christmas special now. We hired, a celebrity voice." And I said, "Oh, that's okay. I didn't care." And the celebrity voice, I understood totally. If you're curious, it was Uncle Si. What I said was, I will not deign to compete with Uncle Si.
He did a good job. But I think he would have too.
Thank you.
I can't find Oliver Onion. I feel so stupid not knowing who that is because it's like I've followed this franchise so thoroughly for so long.
Well, it's possible it never aired. That happens occasionally with productions like that. They record episodes they don't ever use. But it's on my resume for sure. And I remember recording it as well.
Do you remember the name of the episode?
I don't.
No,
I don't. What happened, and I just remember being, all right, how do I, because it wasn't a dialect at all. It was just my regular voice. And I can't remember why they thought of me, because they can do so many of their own voices. They use their in-house people, Mike and all those guys. And they would only usually call people in if they got stumped. Is what I assume. I don't know. They didn't say that. They were always so nice too. That's the other thing, is that I don't think I'd ever worked with a nicer crew, treated like royalty. They, the studio is very nice. That, it's all blah. And state-of-the-art technical stuff, recording. And I'd never done voiceover matched to a cartoon because I had to come in and do a whole day of just special effects, basically of grunting and heaving stuff, all the workout stuff. But they had a wonderful engineer who I still work with sometimes, Sarah Voorhees Wendell now. And she was amazing. And the way the broadcast booth was, I was in this, windowed booth, sound booth. I could see her computer as she worked. And man, it was amazing because I saw all the stuff she was doing and she worked so incredibly fast. So I was only there for Chog, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, for the whole show?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I might have come back in for a second session where I did those pickups, but other than that, yeah, I wasn't there very long at all. That's what's so amazing is, recording. People worked so fast, and of course, with voice acting, you have the script generally in front of you. You're not counted to memorize, and that consumes a lot of time is memorization. So you try to familiarize as much as you can with the script, and you bring it in, but you absolutely have it on a music stand in front of you.
Wow, that's actually really cool because I've always thought, I'm like when they do the voice acting sessions, I thought it took like days or weeks or whatever, just coming into the studio, just trying different things,
It can, but for the most part, with stuff like that, especially, is they'll record you and they'll get a lot of even wild stuff, of recording you making different noises, and then now with the technology they can pull from any of that, but they'll call you up though too and say, can you come in and do pickups, which VeggieTales did sparingly, but they did have me come in and record. It was Chog falling everywhere, so I could grow Scottish accent.
VeggieTales is very different nowadays. Like they've recasted all the original voice actors and all that stuff. I'm not sure if you've seen all that. But
Yes.
The people behind it are still really nice people.
They are. I don't know anything about the details of it. I know that they sold the company basically, and so Mike is doing other stuff now. I know because he's working with friends of mine, and I don't see them regularly. But I did just send a message because I mentioned doing your podcast, and I mentioned that to a friend, and they said, "Oh, I'm working with Mike right now," and I can't remember the project. I don't know if they're saying what it is yet. So he's working. It's an animated project though.
Is it Dead Sea Squirrels maybe?
It is the Dead Sea Squirrels. That is what it is.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
So bad about not saying it now.
That's going to be a good show. I've been looking into that too.
Yeah, I think it will be. They're very creative. Mike is extremely tall and funny.
He is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure even what Mike's age is, but he's not even close to retirement. I don't think so. They hit the ground running. They sold VeggieTales, and he started other stuff immediately.
Oh yeah, he just keeps going. He keeps going.
Yep, that's
the
cool.
industry needs Mike Naraki.
Absolutely.
And they need Henry Haggard, obviously. I love the stuff. I love the stuff you do. So, off the topic of VeggieTales now, like I said, I was watching McLary, watching the end credits. I looked up your name and your profile and all that stuff online. What's some of the, for those who don't know, because obviously I've looked into it, what are some of the other movies you've acted in, and what's been your experience with those?
Well, the biggest thing of note, and the biggest star I ever worked with was Robin Williams in a film called Boulevard. It is mature subject matter. Just a warning to anybody who goes and checks it out. I play Robin Williams' boss at a bank as he's going through a identity crisis. I essentially would describe it. It's a very depressing movie in some ways, although it's also uplifting in some others, as you might imagine. But it explores a very seedy part of life, and it explores our culture a little bit. It's also got two other. Bob Odenkirk is in it, and I didn't have any scenes with Bob Odenkirk, but I got to meet him, which was cool.
That is cool.
I had 5 scenes in total in the movie, and with Robin Williams, 3 of those scenes were with Robin Williams. So I got to spend essentially 20 some odd hours spaced out over 3 days with Robin Williams.
That is awesome.
It was a childhood hero of mine. And so, which I never told him at all because it was a very professional situation. The thing about Robin is they brought me to set the very first day. And the weird thing about this is I didn't have an agent for a long time. I come from a line of mostly live theater. And when you're doing live theater and you're working steadily, you don't have time to do other stuff really. And so for a good 10, 15 years, I was doing some recorded stuff, but only when I didn't have theater work. And I was fortunate enough to be employed so much. Anyway, I stopped doing so much theater and I got an agent. And the very first gig they sent me out on was for Boulevard. I booked it. It's a lot of, I'm SAG-AFTRA and the rules with SAG-AFTRA, which I won't pretend I understand all of them, but part of that is they have to hire a local. And I fit the specs for that. I was a local actor. And I didn't know how local because when they shot it literally walking distance from my house.
Oh, wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, and that we were shooting in the summer, and I don't remember if it was May or June, but around then, May or June of 2013, I got up walked out of my house, walked 2 blocks, and sat in a trailer with Robin Williams.
That is awesome, man. What a memory.
Say the least. And we sat down and we immediately hit it off. I introduced myself, he introduced himself, and I said, "Would you like to run lines?" And he went, "Yes." And so we started running lines and being actors together, which was really, really cool. And of course, Robin Williams is amazing. There was a couple of surreal moments where, we were rehearsing for camera, and I have a very intense scene where I'm, his boss, and kind of hammering him. And I was looking at his face, and in my brain, all I could think of was, I've known who Robin Williams was since the 8th grade.
And I'm yelling at him right now.
It was impossible. It was impossible, right? But I didn't let that show, and I kept going. So, and it got normal in a weird way. And so after that, before that, I spent lots of time in the local theater here in Nashville, a lot with Nashville Children's Theater, and part of their creative team. A lot with what was called then the Tennessee Repertory Theater, and then a lot with a theater up north in my home state of Kentucky, Horse Cave Theater, who became Kentucky Repertory Theater. I don't work for any of those theaters much anymore. Kentucky Repertory Theater, unfortunately, expired 2012-ish. And that was very sad because it was a professional theater that existed in a very small town in Kentucky. It should not have existed ever, but it lasted 35 years. So that's
wow.
Yeah. And but all that time I've been auditioning for stuff. I've been parts of a couple of series with the United Methodist Publishing House, which are all in-house stuff. They're not, you can buy the videotapes and things like that online, but they were Bible educational series, that kind of work. I am not a religious person myself, but I happily, especially if the message is positive and upbeat, I'm happy to be a part of any of those process. And they've been very good to me here. So I do VO work with the Methodists as well, reading books, not on a regular basis, but they call me when they need an old guy voice. Well, and actually that's also accent work. I've recorded 3 books in an English accent.
Oh, awesome.
For an Australian writer. And it caused lots of confusion because they called me and they said, "We want you to do," and my voice tape has got, every dialect I can possibly do, which is, a few. I probably have solid in my back pocket about 25 dialects. And so I had to make sure. I was going, wait, the writer's Australian, but you want an English accent? And they were like, yeah, correct. And I was like, all right.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
What, English?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's an interesting accent to do. So they wanted not super formal, but they wanted your standard English, talking points, elucidating all the words and speaking more in, highbrow. So it wasn't Cockney where you would talk like this and sound a little bit more like Michael Caine, so that kind of thing.
I love that. So someone's good at doing accents when you can't tell that they're doing a voice. It just sounds like that's them. Like if you had come on the podcast doing that voice, I would have thought you were,
Oh, I've done before. I started doing that as a kid. I was a big Monty Python fan. And so I would, try to date girls by convincing them I was English.
Yeah, that could work. That could work. I should look into that.
It was far more successful than it should have been.
Oh, was it really? All right, then I'm taking note of that. That's awesome.
You have to tell them you're not because they're going to meet your family.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, eventually you have to let them know.
Really from England. Actually, love, I'm from Lexington, Kentucky.
I love that. I love that so much. So how often do people approach you about VeggieTales specifically?
It's on the IMDb. If you can pay attention to that, it's certainly the most interesting thing for the work that I auditioned for now. Although a lot of people, it's funny, especially because it's now VeggieTales has been around. I don't know how many years, 20 some odd years,
almost 30. Yeah,
almost 30. Yeah. So it's in several of your childhood, memories and stuff. And so a lot of times people they'll see VeggieTales in my resume, and that'll be what they ask about. I mean, certainly they ask about Robin Williams, but VeggieTales will come up a lot, surprisingly amount of time, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I love that very much. It's kind of cool because I one time read an interview with the voice actors from The Simpsons, all of them. One of my favorite shows, and it's been I was young, not a kid, but since I was young. And I remember when it started, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hope this never goes away. And so far, I've gotten my wish. But I read an interview with all of them, and they just talk about their days and working, and I thought that's amazing, because one of the downsides for me about live theater and recording or whatever in front of a camera is that you have to worry about what you're wearing. You have to worry about how you look. And if I play a character, it's more like me, which is kind of sloppy. I'm in heaven. But if I play a lot of rich people, upper crust, sort of chaps, and you have to dress a certain way. So I wear, tuxes and stuff like that. Can't stand it. And I thought, what a great thing to voice act full time, especially with something as iconic as The Simpsons, is you just show up to work in your sweats.
There you go. There you go. You're behind the microphone. They don't see you.
You go. The only thing that can screw you over with voice acting is allergies, or if you get a cold, or a frog in your throat or whatever. That could be. But that also messes with any kind of recorded performance as well. So
That does, yeah. I goof off and do like voice impressions and stuff online all the time. I could not hit a high pitch for like 2 straight weeks because I had a cold. So anytime I tried to do it, my voice would just go silent, my mouth would just be moving, and nothing was coming out.
Absolute worst.
That's the worst.
Cracker Barrel. I'm sure they have Cracker Barrels where you are.
Oh yeah,
they're everywhere now, aren't they? They used to sell the Slippery Elm.
I'm not familiar with that.
I don't know if they still sell or not, but Slippery Elm. They're little lozenges that they used to sell at I could only find them at Cracker Barrel. And I'm not sure if it was just a psychological effect, but I would, when I was having voice troubles, especially when I had to perform and do many performances live, where I talked a lot, my voice would go out frequently, especially if you're doing rotating rep, where you're running 3 different shows at the same time. And if you've got big roles in all those shows, it means you work 6 nights a week, full tilt, the voice. And so I would get those Slippery Elms and pop them back, and I swear they could heal your voice almost immediately.
I have to look into those. I hope they're still around.
And
did you get a chance to meet, I'm guessing when you were doing the voices for Mac Larry, you were in studio with Mike Naraki, is that right?
I was with Mike, but that's because Mike was directing it.
Okay, but you didn't meet Phil Vischer or the other voice actors?
So it's interesting because that kind of work, there's standards within the industry when you're shooting a film, for example, and I don't know if you know this or not. So if you do, I apologize if I sound condescending. I'm not trying to.
No, you're good. Go for it.
And then, I'm saying this too because I'm mostly from theater. I am, within the last decade or two, being educated on a lot of stuff, and film culture keeps changing and progressing. So now with technology, there's a whole new vocabulary as well. But anyway, stand-ins, which I'd heard the term stand-in. I kind of knew what it was. It's somebody who stands in for an actor. But what I didn't realize was the primary function of a stand-in is to stand in for you for the camera while the camera guys do their jobs and everything. So Boulevard was one of the first times I ever had a stand-in. And in fact, this guy was following me around, and it was a very funny exchange because I said, he introduced himself and said, I'm your stand-in. And I said, well, what are you doing right now? And he goes, well, I'm going to go in your office and sit where you're going to be sitting. And I went, oh, okay. But I was a little irritated. So I'm sorry, what was your question?
Like how many of the people doing voices in VeggieTales did you get to meet?
Yes, I'm so sorry. So that stand, this is just an interesting side note first, is that like if I'm shooting a scene with you, and the camera's on you, I'll stay there with you, even though I'm not on camera, and do our scene because I want our scene to be good. Some actors don't do that. And sometimes if you can be cast with stars, the more powerful a person is, they don't have to be there at all. They can go sit in their trailer. And, and fair enough. Robin Williams was there on the other side of the camera. Every time you see me talking, I'm talking to Robin Williams because he never left. And of course I never left for him either. And I was really impressed by that. So that being said, but in voice acting, a lot of the times you don't meet anybody else. So they'll read in the other characters. Now, sometimes if you're recording last, you get to hear their performances, but they have not heard yours, or vice versa. You're recording and you've just got engineers and director filling in the other voices. So with VeggieTales, because Mike also voiced, so anytime I was with a character that he voiced, I got to work with him live, which was awesome. But there would be so it was about half and half, because he did about half the voices. So the other half weren't there, or they were pre-recorded.
Okay, all right. I always imagined when people did voice acting, because obviously I'm not, I don't know too much about it. I imagine they were all like, on video call or in the same booth or something, just like going off each other, because I feel like that would make it easier,
Yeah, and that does happen. That has not happened much with me. I just shot a film just 2 weeks ago. Shot a film here in Nashville called Clone Cops. It's not yet released. It'll probably be about another year. And I play a character who's in working on a computer a lot. I'm a mad scientist.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
a lot. And they different camera angles for me talking to people on video. And so I asked if we could have those actors on set, because I wanted to hear their reads. So we did a read through before, and when it was possible, I was there for them and they were there for me. But unfortunately, it wasn't possible several days. So some days it just had to be crew reading those lines in while they recorded me. And I missed that a lot. It's interesting because it's hard to define the unique back and forth between two actors, but we know it when we see it. And film, you notice it better live, actually, when you watch two actors really connect on a stage. But when you watch actors connect on film, we also know it then too. And almost 9 times out of 10, I can almost tell you if the actor was actually, what space they were in, was that person actually there? And, usually the better performances, those actors were right there working off each other. You can tell the energy is simpatico.
Yeah, it kind of gets the tone of voice and all that,
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know whenever they did the Netflix series for VeggieTales, I'm pretty sure. I know it's Tress MacNeille, Rob Paulson, Phil Vischer, Mike Naraki doing like all the voices for the entire series. And I think they were all just like on video meetings the entire time. Like I don't think they ever met in studio.
That's probably true with those guys. They all most of them live near each other. I know that because they were talking when I was asked where people live. Where do you live? And they're down near closer to the studio, which is, in another town, but very close by to Nashville. And I thought that was really cool that they've known each other that long, but they all kind of live close by and still hung out socially.
Yeah, I think that's cool too.
If you're in a creative process, a creative marriage is what I would call it, for that many years, and you still speak to one another, that's a really good sign.
I think so too. Phil Vischer and Mike Naraki always really clicked, because after like 30 years and all the craziness VeggieTales has been through, they're still friends, which is nice,
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I know they're actually recorded in studio when they did the TBN series, if you're familiar with the VeggieTales show. Kind of, yeah. They did like a reboot back in 2019, and they were in studio recording together, which was cool.
That is very cool.
But I was just mad that Chog wasn't in it.
Right? I stood by for the call. When it changed hands, my agent, I had gotten an agent, and I said, I lost my contact there, the person that I knew. And then Mike and those guys were gone. And I said, well, resubmit me. And they did. And, it's just one of those things, you fall through the cracks. With stuff like that, if they can save money, because it's also unionized now too. It wasn't union the first one I did, and it unionized during that. And actually, I transitioned to the union about the same time. And the union, it's interesting because they paid very, very well, almost to union standard before they went union. So, which is always a good sign too. But once it went union, it was that means that's when you get cut in for a piece of the pie, right?
Oh yeah, there we go.
You start getting a taste. It's just business, right? And it's one of those things. It becomes a harder thing to book when that happens because so they keep stuff in house as much as they can, and it's unfortunately a lot of times becomes about money.
Yeah.
That's just a fact of the industry. It's amazing now because we can do stuff that's so much cheaper. I shot a horror film back in December called Octo Games, which is actually out now.
Oh, awesome! I'll look into that.
Yeah, the Octo Games. I play a terrible person, but the studio that backed that film and the guy that shot it, they work on hardly any budget at all. It's most of their budget is paying actors. Everything else, I think he was borrowing. Amazing what he could get away with for that. But at the same time, he had a state-of-the-art camera, brilliant camera that was incredibly light sensitive, so he didn't have to invest a lot in a gaffing department. He had a really good microphone, and basically he recorded us with a boom mic the whole time. We did not wear body mics at all, and that's happened before, but usually they want to get all the coverage they can, so they'll put a body mic on you, they'll cover you with the boom, and they'll get you to do wild sometimes, where you just go over and just do ADR for the scene you just did. Just say all the lines you just said. So they've got those all clean if they need them to cover them in the edit. And that guy worked so economically like that we would record with the boom, no body mics, but we would do coverage ADR of the entire scene. I was always so impressed with that.
That is cool. I love that. Got a lot of different ways to do it, and some are more efficient than others, but that sounds like a good method.
Yeah.
And this is nothing against like current VeggieTales, current being like within like this year, I guess. But I do feel like there was a lot more heart and soul. Like in Mac Larry, that's such a good episode. The animation's so good. The voice acting is obviously great. The songs are good. Now they're doing like a podcast type of thing, so it's not animated currently. And I spoke to the people at VeggieTales Official just yesterday. They're very active on Instagram. And I was messaging back and forth with an intern or an employee or something working there. And they said they do have projects in the works, so that, looking forward to seeing what those are. But I do miss the days of VeggieTales when they were like full animated films,
Yeah.
Was something special about that.
Yeah. Well, those guys, they started it. I don't know all the details of their backstory, of course, but I know they started it out of a very heartfelt belief in it. And that often will denote something it's again sort of undefinable. It's very esoteric. You just kind of know it when you see it or you hear it. And it's nothing against people who take over franchises like that at all. I've original series now that have had reboots, and I can't think of a recent example exactly. But the Connors that came from Roseanne, that sitcom, which was a sitcom way back in the day, and we still watch it. And I said part of it was just out of comfort, but it's not the same show anymore. Obviously, she's not on it anymore, but it's not the same show, although it's the same writing style and the same actors who played those characters, but it's evolved. And that happens to all of us, though. We as human beings are not the same person we were, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago,
Whenever I'm looking at the current VeggieTales stuff, I try to think if this is going to be someone's classic eventually. Like the stuff I grew up with is special to me, but this podcast, people are going to get used to that. And I know the whole way it went down was feeling like I won't get into all that stuff. I think as far as I'm concerned, they should still be working on the show. And I don't think that's their fault, but there are still dedicated people working with what they have, and they're still doing good stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, that's still a good thing.
Absolutely. And VeggieTales was very, very good to all of them. They lived very good lives.
They did for sure. That's awesome. All right. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you remember the song from Mac Larry that Chog sings?
No.
No, that's all right. I was going to have you do it. I keep singing it to my sister and driving her nuts. It's I like to break things, rip them in half. I'll shave off your chest hair if it's good for a laugh. You remember that one?
No.
I like to throw things and break them in half. I'll shave off your chest hair if it's good for a laugh.
His music memory is pretty profound. It's better than just memorizing and stuff. But I do so much stuff that I have done performances that somebody will know that I can't remember even doing. Live performances sometimes too, where I'm like, oh, I guess I did do that, but I was doing 5 other things at the same time. That's so awesome that you do.
Well, that's actually funny. I was talking to Phil Vischer on Twitter, just like not like really going back and forth much, but someone had tweeted to him a picture of like a Bob the Tomato balloon in like a parade, and it was a screenshot from an episode where that was in the background. And they messaged him and they said, I don't remember this episode. What is it? And he was like, I have no idea what that is. And I was like, wait, I know what it is. It was from the Gideon Tuba Warrior episode, if you've seen that one.
Right.
And so I messaged back and Phil Vischer was like, oh, I forgot.
You've been watching VeggieTales all your life?
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting because your child memory and you're obviously not a child anymore, but your child memory is so much stronger than your adult memory. I've done shows with children who will know every line that everybody says, like nine. They will know every line of everything in the play. They're obsessed with it. When you're lucky enough to know, as an adult actor, to know your own lines. Hopefully you know your own lines and whatever. But it's always interesting to me, too, what we retain. I remember stuff from my childhood that songs, for me, it was Captain Kangaroo. And a little bit, I was a little old for, what's his name?
Thinking Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers. I was trying to call him Mr. Robinson, which was the parody that Eddie Murphy did. Rogers. I came in on the tail end of that, and I was a little too old for Sesame Street. But all of those are still iconic in my brain.
Oh yeah, those are all good shows.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, classic children's shows, there is something special about that, but the modern stuff will still be classic to people one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for making time to come on here. This has been really, really great.
Thank you, Finn. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed myself.
Absolutely. You think Chog could sign us out?
Absolutely. Please be sure to watch this show on YouTube.
On YouTube, yes.
On YouTube. It's great.
I love this. I really, really appreciate you joining. It means a lot to me.
Thank you, Finn. I appreciate you asking me.
That was my interview with Henry Haggard from 2022. I also asked if he'd give my sister a shout out as Chog. Here's that.
Hello, Soleil. How are you? It's good to see you. Would you like to go for a wagon ride?
Now, here is our second interview. Similar to my interview with Sean Chiplock, this second interview was even more so a conversation than the first one. We really just get into everything here. A lot of fun to listen to, and even more fun to be a part of.
Sure, yeah, man. How you been? First, let me ask you how you've been, though. I can ask you how you've been. We can record that, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've been good. Just busy with everything.
Congratulations. I just turned 60.
16?
16 would not be good if I look like this.
Well, you said you had a full beard at 16.
I did. Prior to that, I had a full beard. My first full beard was, I think, 14.
Oh, for real? 14?
13 or 14. I started shaving when I was 13, yeah.
Oh my gosh. That makes me angry. I'm so mad.
My brother never was able, he's no longer with us, but
I'm sorry.
My brother was never able to grow a beard. He hated the fact that I could grow a beard so early because he didn't start shaving until he was in his 20s. So anyway.
No.
Right on. Well, good. I'm glad to know you're well. Just busy.
How are you doing?
Very good. We've life goes on. I've gotten a little bit busier. I'm doing a couple of videos with Lifeway here in town, which is local to Nashville. They're not in their curriculum. This is more for their camp and their in-house videos. You won't be able to see them anywhere. But I get to play like a pirate and a scientist of some kind, I think, and something else. That's all next week. So that popped up. I'm doing, I think I told you I was going to be hosting with a comedy partner. I'm doing tours in Nashville here on a very large pink school bus, which is actually we're with an established tour. It's been around for 25 years, but we just started for them. Nash Trash Tours.
Ooh.
And you can access information about that at nashtrash.com. And if you're in Nashville and you see the Hank and Jenny tour is the tour that I'm on. So we've just developed it. We wrote it over several weeks. It is a tour, a traditional tour. So we take you around and give you some historical facts.
Nice.
We don't do it as ourselves. We're both playing we use our own names, but we're both playing very Southern versions of ourselves.
Oh,
we play
cool.
up the Nashville, and I bring my guitar and we play a few songs. And Jenny, my partner, is an amazing singer. Like, I don't know if you're into country music at all.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Especially old country music. She can sing exactly like Dolly Parton.
Wow.
Yeah, that's no small feat. Dolly Parton is really, really a hard voice to do. And so Jenny also too, though, does a lot of voiceovers. And in fact, she is working with Mike Noraki, but she was supposed to record like this week. They're doing, it's squirrels, but I don't know what it's called. I think we talked about this before.
Dead Sea Squirrels, right?
Yes, the Dead Sea Squirrels.
That's
she's
so
doing
cool.
that. And so, but they had to cancel because one of the producers or somebody had some health issues going on, so they had to postpone. So they'll be doing that in a few weeks. I was sad because I was like, oh, I'll do my interview and then I'll have talked to Jenny after her working with Mike. And so no, that was not to be.
No, that's fine. Well, that's really cool she's working with him though.
It is.
Exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know any. I'll have to go and Google Dead Sea squirrels because that's hilarious. First of all,
It looks really good.
The play on words is hilarious. Well, that's what struck me when I first got those scripts all those years ago when they first sent me the Chog Norrius was the first, I believe, and I read the script. I couldn't believe how funny it was because, like I said, we don't have children. I don't, so therefore no grandchildren. So therefore, I was vaguely aware of VeggieTales because of friends, but I didn't know anything about it otherwise. So once you get, I've had that happen frequently where I can get cast on things that I've never. I did, as I mentioned before, a little recap of the former interview. I had a co-star role on The Resident on Fox.
Ooh.
And I had never watched one episode of it. I had no idea what it was, what it was about. That's the I cannot think Bruce, and I'm not going to get his last name right. An amazing actor that plays the lead doctor in that show. It'll come to me in a few minutes. It's
That happens.
the old brain needs to be kick-started now and then. And he and the other senior members of the cast were just so awesome. They were really, really incredible. But I'd never watched any shows. So my wife started watching the shows as I drove down to Atlanta, and she would text me little synopsis of each episode so that when I got to my script, studying my script, it made sense in the context, because this was like the 12th or 13th episode in the second season or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she was watching. Yeah, she was binge watching all these shows and reading recaps and stuff like that to catch up. So there was a sudden scramble. But by the time I walked into the set, I had 3 days actually as I was down in Atlanta. They put me up in a hotel and because there was no COVID yet, so we didn't have to do COVID protocols. Yet they had me there. They I did a fitting on Saturday, but I didn't work till Monday, so I was in Conyers, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. Going, well, I guess I will take advantage of, there was restaurants in walking distance, and so I just sort of hung out in Conyers for a couple of days. And then I was on set for maybe 4 hours.
Oh, wow. That's not too bad for a filming, is it?
No, it was awesome. It was a very quick scene. The actors that had the main meat of the scene were very well rehearsed, and the showrunners knew exactly what they were doing. You walked into the studio, they knew where everybody went. We sat down, we got the business. I was impressed with how all of the fake hospital stuff in this very large studio in Conyers where they shoot it. And if you drove by them, you would not know they weren't tobacco warehouses or, God knows what, just huge warehouses in the middle of the country, really.
That's so cool.
Because, Conyers is about 20-25 miles outside of Atlanta, really. So, yeah, it was cool. And I shot, I can't remember if I think I did plug Clone Cops that I shot last October, but I can't remember when we did our interview. But so I've got a feature film coming out.
All right.
Clone Cops.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
It was nuts. It was, I have no idea. I had a great time. I have no idea if it's funny or not, but we'll find out.
I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I will too, probably. But we had great, silly fun. I had about 8-9 days on set. I play basically a mad scientist, and
ooh, nice.
How can that not be fun?
Exactly. That's so much fun. Was he a Scottish mad scientist? A British?
No, he was
mad
not
scientist?
Scottish. No. As a matter of fact, he was more on the side. I probably gave him a little bit of a Jersey accent. Just a little bit. I've been watching a lot of Sopranos, and so I decided, I think this guy talks a little bit like this. So I gave him, just a little bit of a northern accent. I didn't want to get pegged in too much,
I love that. I'm going to watch the movie just for that, just so I can see Henry Haggard's northern accent.
Well, usually these days, because we're doing the tour so much and I'm speaking in this very thick southern accent, I come home and my wife is like, "What? Why are you talking like that?"
Let's hear it.
The show is over. Oh, I'm Hank Haggard. Hey there. Come on, y'all. Get on the bus. We got to go. Here we are.
I love that. It comes so naturally to you. All these different accents, it's amazing to me.
That's split personality syndrome or whatever it's called. That's no, I shouldn't make fun of that. That's a real thing. But that's we talked about working. I worked with Robin Williams, and one of the things, he was an idol of mine too. And so when I was a kid and I was watching Mork and Mindy, or I think I was probably a teenager, a little bit younger than you, when I saw his San Francisco special, because HBO, Dirty Words and stuff like that. But I snuck and saw it. I saw it at a friend's house, and I couldn't believe how he could just jump in and out of character so fast.
He's amazing. He was amazing.
He was so amazing. To do a German accent and then do a flawless, English accent, to do a flawless, just anything, all the characters that he inhabited. So that definitely, I never could be that as far as that goes. I tried to mimic his stand-up style, but it was not for me. I don't know what energy source he was tapping into the ethos to bring out of him the demons that possessed him to a degree that he could just manifest anything and you would believe every word coming out of his mouth.
The voices in his head.
Yeah. So, and he did a little bit of that on set. The role he was playing with what I was doing with him was very serious. So that was all. There wasn't a whole lot of joviality, but sometimes when he knew he could put his guard down some, he would start, and when the two of us would be sitting together, I probably told you this before, but he would sit and start whispering jokes to me that nobody else could hear. And there was no like trying not to laugh. There was no I was laughing. I was giddy, positively giddy. And people kept looking back there to see what we were laughing about. And then people that know me later on, when they saw me, were like, "What was he saying?" And I couldn't remember a thing he said. I was like, I have no idea. I was out of my head. I was like sitting there listening. I was getting a private stand-up routine from a comic idol, an icon of an American actor.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
He looks you straight in the eye and says, "Why did the chicken cross the road?"
No, he did not do that. But or maybe he did that. I don't remember. I have I wasn't going to talk about this because I hate it when people go, "And my back's been hurting." I've had there it goes, starting to relax. I had a back injury, and I hadn't really properly. I should have stretched before I did it. There's a little clue to everybody out there. Anyway, I didn't stretch, and I went out there and went, "Hey, I'll move this pile of rocks." And my back went, I don't appreciate that.
It's like, you think you will. I don't think you will.
Right. I've got an appointment with I go to a chiropractor that's very close by, and they're awesome. There's two of them in there, and they usually fix me right up so that I'm good to go like the next day, but I couldn't get an appointment until tomorrow. Anyway.
It's amazing what they can do.
Well, how this is all interconnected too, because this is actually, to get really technical, on my left side lower spine, like one of those vertebrae way down low, and I can feel it's partly muscle, but I can feel a little bit of the bone that's gone askew there, and so that is definitely connected. You didn't know you were going to get a chiropractor lesson.
No, I love it.
That is connected to these. I don't know what these are called. I'm going to say vagus nerve, but I'm totally, there is a vagus nerve, but that's not it probably. But this nerve, this muscle that comes up here, and it digs in, and it's really embarrassing. It's terrible. I work for a hospitality company intermittently. That sometimes they'll get overflow. That I'll go out to Opryland and I'll be like a greeter, or I'm pointing directions out to people and stuff like that. I don't get to do it very often, but we were doing team building exercises, and I was working with people. Nobody knew who I was at all, and this hit me, and this woman thought I was having a heart attack.
Oh no.
And I was trying to explain to her, no, it's not a heart attack, but you're clutching your chest. Yes, it's a muscle cramp. It's just a muscle cramp. I have not hydrated properly. My potassium is too low, and you get muscle cramps. But my father had them too, and I've had them all my life, and it's probably something I should ask a doctor about the next time I see them.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun to live with.
Right. So enough about me. Let's move on to those questions.
No, you're good. You're good. That's interesting, because it is all connected. Like you injure one thing, the next thing's injured too.
Yes.
Same time you remember that guy's last name, your back cramp will go away.
Oh, now you're making me laugh and making the cramp worse. That sounds like super old, but I'll tell you what, at 60, I don't feel old. So hopefully
That's not
it'll
old.
be, yeah,
It
I
really
hopefully
isn't.
well, what I've always said my whole life, let's see if I can bear it out, is that, I mean, and of course I've known older actors too in my life. In fact, a mentor of mine just recently passed, very sadly,
No, I'm sorry.
excuse me, in hospice. It's sad, but he, at the same time, he lived a wonderful 86 years. I'm sorry, he was 86 years old.
86. That's not half
Yeah,
bad.
that's not bad at all. My own father made it to 91, and I thought that people would say I'm sorry, and I was like, I miss him, and I'm sorry, but we had him for 91 years. I mean,
I mean, 91. That's pretty good.
he and he died on his own terms. He fully to himself, and he kept saying when he would talk about it, he wasn't obsessed with it like a lot of people get, but he said, when I pass, I just want to pass in my sleep. And that's what he did.
Oh.
He went to bed and he didn't get up the next morning.
And see, that doesn't make it easier, but it is comforting to know that he had a long, good life, But you still want him to go longer,
easier, actually. It does kind of make it a little bit easier. I mean, it doesn't make you miss them less. Just I miss talking to him,
Oh, for sure.
My dad and I were pretty tight. So yeah, realistically for me, that's one would assume that most of my career is behind me, and that's okay. But at the same time, you never know in this business what you might do. I didn't do the Robin Williams film until I was 50 years old, so or younger. I was late 40s, I believe. So I mean, that's a long time, and I had done a whole lot of other stuff. I often say that in this business, as a freelance actor, professional and union and all that and everything, you're as good as the last project that you did. And by that I mean it's simply people want to know what you did and what you're going to do. That's the questions that you're fielding all the time. And so it only becomes really awkward when you reach a point, and this has happened to me a couple of times, where you reach like the seesaw has arced up the other side and it's stuck. It's not coming back. The pendulum's not swinging back the other way, because that's work ebbs and flows. So you get super, super, super busy, and then you have no work at all. That's the name of the game in this business.
It is.
And especially trying to do it out of a lesser market in Nashville, Tennessee. Because quite frankly, if I'd gone to a bigger city, I might have had more, obviously New York or LA, but I didn't like either of those cities to really live in. So I made a conscious choice. And at that time too, I was doing mostly live theater. So the bus kind of afforded me something that I did a little soul searching in my 50s before I turned 60. And I decided that I wanted to go back to live audiences. But to do that and make it lucrative, I needed to look for an alternative. And this actually came to me. I kind of put that out in the universe, did one of those things, and the universe went, hey, I heard you. And a friend of mine, Jenny, was already hooked up with these guys, and I had considered doing this. They had put out, saying, hey, if you can write, and you can write like an hour and a half, you can do your own tour. But at the time I was so busy, I was looking at it, I was going, that would be really hard. that would be dang near impossible. It's really funny when innovation meets need meets, opportunity. And that's what Jenny walked me through, because Jenny I had all these questions. I was going, yeah, but it's not worth your time. She's like, they pay this amount of money. I was like, oh,
it is worth your time.
Definitely worth your time. It won't make you a rich person, but what it will do is it gives you the benefits of, well, for some people, a full-time job, only working about 2 days a week, and only on both those days, it only takes about 4 hours of your time from start to finish. Yeah, that's the economy. That's why, one of the reasons I left the theater is that the theater pays, the union pays you a weekly salary. Contracts in the Midwest or what is referred to as regional theater, all of parts of Jersey and Pennsylvania, the Northeast, and then you have the Southeast. It's all sectioned off. I'm in the Southeast, out of Atlanta. There's this amount of work, and then of course the Western states and the Midwest all are divvied up into different parts. And of course, a lot of the industry, film and television, used to be focused west. Although New York's always been a pretty good hub for stuff going on, a creative hub. Well, Nashville is actually a creative hub as well, more for songwriting and things like that. But people forget a lot of television was produced out of here as well. So the reverb of that is we have lots of studios here. So there's lots of people trying to launch new things, like the film I shot back in October. That's a fledgling production company. That's the first full feature-length film they've produced, but they have tons of content on other platforms that are 3-minute shorts, 2-minute shorts, 15-minute shorts, and they had proved that they could launch those productions and stuff. So it's kind of fun being on. And there's a dozen more just around here, and some of that's companies down in Atlanta, because it's gotten so saturated down there, have gone, Nashville's a secondary market, but it's close. It's only 5 hours from Atlanta. They come up here, which is nice.
It is nice, yeah.
So those opportunities exist. So I don't know. What I wish would happen in the next 10 years is I would love to be on a series as a series regular.
Ooh, that'd be really cool. I
would love for it to be a comedy. I auditioned for such animals. I've got ideas for such animals as far as that goes. And I've kept myself plugged in with a few producer friends, guys I've known who are younger than me but have been around for a while. They've produced various kinds of content for both film and television.
That's super cool. Yeah, stay connected.
Yeah, it's just staying connected. If nothing else, that isn't to say that I look for them for employment opportunities, but it does keep my ear to the ground for what's happening in the culture here, the specific Nashville culture. When the rumor will come out that a studio is being built close by. Ooh, how big, And because when you start hearing about those big studios, and just like what it's called Trilith now, that produce all the Marvel stuff down in Atlanta. Trilith Studios, Trilith.
I'm sorry, my dog knows how to push the door open, but it doesn't know how to leave.
Oh, let him in. Come on in.
It walked in and had been here for a while, and then went back out, so it was just like laying on the floor crying, and I was like, all right, I got you.
This is the first Zoom call I've done since we've lost our last pet about a month ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The last kitty. Yeah, it was sad, but he was 18. So speaking of which,
oh my gosh,
he had lived to a very ripe age.
He had, for sure, but then once again, it's still really tough,
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit tough. So anyway, that's what I would say. In the next 10 years, what I would love. I mean, I'm not pushy, so I don't try to, some people. I'm not pushing. I'm not desperate. I have done a lot of really satisfying creative endeavors. With the bus stuff, it's interesting because now we're starting to have ideas to write another live show that we would do, in different venues around town for whatever.
Oh, nice.
And part of that we're talking about, I'm trying to talk her into this because she's a little more timid about things like this, but she is so good at improv that it's scary. And so there's a couple of improv houses in town that I've suggested, let's go down, we'll take the guitar, we'll go in character as our sweet Southern selves. She's not as old as I am, but she's 50. She's 10 years younger than me. We will be a lot older than a lot of the people performing, which would be really fun to play with and go up and just sort of make fun of ourselves and sing a couple of songs and tell a few jokes. We are supposed to be siblings, identical half twin siblings is what we say. Although we don't look anything alike.
Which makes it funnier.
Yes, that's part of the comedy. And it will turn down. To remind people that we're siblings, we sometimes get in little slap fights, and she'll do something, pull my ear, or she'll flick my nose, or do something a sister would do to a brother, and it hilarity ensues.
I wish those were recorded. I'd love to see that.
Well, they are kind of, and we will be, and I'll let you know. I'll send a heads up if I decided. I might be asking you for advice as far as YouTube and stuff.
For sure, yes.
We talked about that, yeah. But I would like to do, as I've been studying TikTok. I think I may have mentioned that to you the last time we talked. I've been studying the TikTok, and it's been in all the trials that are going on right now. Not hearings that they're talking to TikTok, and it's fascinating to me just knowing what I know about social media in general. Which I haven't decided whether social media will make us, elevate us to a further, mankind will dominate the next 200 years, or if it will absolutely just ruin the entire, race of man.
I'm going to go for that one.
If it
follows the trend.
If I was placing bets, I don't know that I would disagree with you. No, but I find it fascinating, the creative content on TikTok. No, all joking aside, and of course, there's some horrifying things on there as well.
Really are.
They really are. I mean, I'm not saying things that offend me. I'm talking more about just some of the sad things. The self-exploitive, I guess, maybe arguably, but the self-exploitive things.
Yeah,
People trying to get attention.
they're very desperate to get attention.
Yeah, I mean, like, you expect somebody who might not be a very good singer or something like that. That's okay. You cheer them on. Maybe they'll get better.
Yeah.
But then there's people who, and then there's the people who are actually lying about their situations, or sometimes there's a fine line. I had somebody one time, try to give me a salesman's job, and they said, "You'd be a great salesman. You're an actor. You lie for a living." And I sat and thought about that for a very long time, because I went, wait a minute, is that true? And vaguely it is, except for there's a crucial difference. I'm a terrible liar. I can't lie to people. But I'm a good actor. And the reason that is because if you come see something or watch something of mine online, you know that that's pretend. That's not really me. So we've agreed to tell I'm telling you a lie, but I've agreed to tell you first up front that it is a lie. And you've agreed to accept that lie for the sake of,
Entertainment.
Yes, for the sake of entertainment. It's it's an old term, the willing suspension of disbelief, of watching stuff that we know is absolutely hokey sometimes. Watching talking vegetables.
Yeah, there we go. Well, see, but I thought they were real. I was so crushed. Got to the end credits and I was like, okay, that's cool that Henry Haggard was in this, but I thought that there was a real Chog Norrius,
Scottish cucumber.
I only learned they weren't real like a couple months ago, Always open the fridge and see if I can catch them talking, but never did.
Speaking of VeggieTales future, I don't know specifically what those futures might be, but it's interesting because I think it goes into the other future about AI.
Getting a little freaky.
Well, because VeggieTales was pretty landmark itself in computer animation. I mean, there were computer animated things before it, but I'm not sure how many were that they produced a lot of content, and they could do so fairly quickly when they first started doing it. And you probably know maybe more about that kind of animation more than I do, is that I know that now you can accomplish incredible things if you got the right software and enough memory and all that stuff. But it's still not super easy to do, just easier than it was. And AI will
more
make
available.
Yes. AI will make that easier for the layman, but it's sort of like what cell phones did, that you have a video camera that you're carrying around with you in your pocket all the time is an amazing thing. Especially, I remember I was an adult when, the 80s and 90s, when, camcorders started getting smaller and you could carry them in your pocket and sneak them into a movie and record a movie. People would sell the bootlegs on the street, as far as that goes. And then as the internet took off, there was still a lot of you wasn't as available. You still had to go. Somebody had to have the video camera, stuff like that. But not till smartphones, and now with the bigger networks and stuff that we can have, is that literally anybody. I don't know if we talked about this before, but like the first film that was shot on an iPhone 6, I believe, and I can't remember the title of the film, but that blew me away. It was like, yeah, this guy he had professionals doing everything else, but he basically set up his iPhone 6 and shot. Well, it was one of those films was nominated for an Academy Award. I know that.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah. I don't know how you get the footage in movie quality,
I don't know what exactly they did. You can read about it though. The process is available. You can go and look it up, like movies shot on iPhone 6 or whatever, or first movie shot on iPhone 6. But I think it was 6 was the first one that they actually did it, and we all went, wow. Well, then I have tons of friends who started creating their own content for Instagram and YouTube and Facebook a little bit too. Facebook not being as much towards that, although their story section is kind of with that. But TikTok, and I read about it and heard about it, and I started watching it. And I was absolutely fascinated. It is like watching a train wreck, literally, because you can't look away.
It kind of is, yeah.
Yeah, that I realized I like the first time I did it, it was like an hour and a half was sucked out of my life, and I wasn't sure what I'd seen because I just kind of scrolled, going, oh, you know,
Oh my.
yeah, what is going on here? Why are these people so mad? You know, oh look, kittens. You know,
Oh wow, I can't unsee that.
well, and our brains, you know, we are, especially developing brains, you know, young children. If I worry about them if they're having access, although you'd have to have a phone and all that stuff and be able to do it, but still, young impressionable brains should be very careful. And I don't mean, you know, just bad stuff out there. It's the way we develop your attention span and stuff like that.
That's true.
There are things that we all need to do as human beings, no matter what age you are, is unplug, unconnect. We lost our power a few weeks ago with the windstorms, right? And it was a bummer. We just lost it for maybe, I don't know, like 28 hours or something like that, a little over a day. But they went out like at 2 o'clock in the morning and came back. I mean, I'm sorry, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and came back at 4 o'clock the next morning, 4:30 the next morning. So yeah, roughly 26 hours we lost it. But in that time, I had plenty of light. You know, we had all these LED lights that we could just press a button. We had light, everything. But I didn't have internet. I didn't have television. I had books. I could sit and read a book if I wanted to do that. I did not do that.
You had the option. You knew it was available.
I did. I lit a couple candles. I sat and played guitar. I wrote a song.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to say for that, is when you unplug and you can tap your inner creator. But it's also good to be, you know, to be aware of what other people are creating and doing.
Oh, for sure. Where could this song be heard?
It can't be heard yet.
No, man.
I wrote one very short one on for the bus, the welcome song, and we play other people's music, like snippets of other very famous country songs. Will a circle be unbroken and stuff like that. Working on a building, but mostly I'm pointing at my guitar now, which is off frame. I was like, we need to start, and we're going to write more songs. But I said, we just need to start writing songs that are just hilariously funny, you know, that are just, you know, hopefully like, and because my character, Hank, thinks he's really good at writing songs. So the songs I'm writing are purposefully simplistic and to sort of exploit the fact that Hank's not nearly as bright as he thinks he is. So that's great fun. So, yeah, my aspirations, I'm going to stick with the series. Advice for young people and for anybody. I mean, old people too. I advise a lot of people. Like, I kind of put it out there. I don't advertise it because I don't charge people money for it. But occasionally, especially somebody like a lot of guys my age who are starting to retire from whatever they did in life. They were a plumber. I literally talked to a guy who was a plumber that just decided it would be fun to start acting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but he didn't know a thing about how to get started. He didn't know what to do and stuff. And he was an extra on the film that I shot back in October. And so he asked me if he could talk to me, have coffee with me, and ask me questions. And I said, absolutely. Fascinating. You know, that's fascinating to me that you would really, you know, and I told him, I said, it's not, the technology is probably the most intimidating thing for most people unless they're already familiar with the technology. But you can't just be familiar with the technology. You have to stay a little bit current on it. And I know enough just to make me dangerous, right? But I have tons of friends who are younger and, you know, very, very well versed with the tech. If I really get in a bind, I know that I can always call them, which is nice. That is very nice. But yeah, my biggest advice right now is to be creative. I mean, depending on what you do, if you're trying to be an actor, I'll say this, and I'll try to be semi-brief.
No, you're good. You're good. I love this.
When I came up in the day, and we're talking, you know, I was born in '62, so in American theater, Lee Strasberg had already started his studio in New York in the late '40s, the '50s, and had kind of rocked the world. They'd given Marlon Brando is the standout actor. If you don't know who that is, you should know who that is.
The
Marlon Brando
name
was a
kind of familiar, but I
kind
should
of
probably
familiar.
look him up.
Well, he was, if nothing else, this is much later in his career. If nothing else, he was Jor-El in the first Superman movie. The first one in color and with some modern technology with Christopher Reeve.
Got you.
They paid him, and it was such a big deal because they paid him $1 million, and he was on screen for maybe 6 minutes. He plays Jor-El.
Oh my gosh.
That's Marlon Brando, and phenomenal actor though. On the Waterfront is the film I would recommend if you were trying to familiar yourself with his work.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, interesting character too. And he did a version of Streetcar Named Desire. That was the iconic film version of it, which is of course a Tennessee Williams play originally, but they turned it into a film as they did with many of his plays. And when he it was the birth of realism in American film. It had already started kind of in the theater, but you'll see those old movies where they're talking like this, and let's all go down to the blah blah blah. They're bigger style of acting. That was more modeled after the theatrical style of acting, right? And so Marlon Brando came along. Now we're so used to it now, and especially you guys that are so young, all you've ever seen is people doing realism.
Yeah, it's true.
It is a lot. Well, I mean, we're starting to get, we've got Tim Burton's, and we've got,
yeah, it's true.
The Terry Gilliam and people like that are super imaginative, and younger filmmakers too that are starting to crop up as well, that are doing phenomenal stuff, especially with the technology again that people have access to. But aspiring actors now, if you're starting out, the absolute thing you need to do is you need to hone your improv skills along with your writing skills, and they're the same thing really. When you're doing improv, and this is how we approach the bus thing, because neither one of us is really writers, but we're actors who have told stories and written stories for a very long time. And we sat and we first just wrote down all the technical stuff to do with the tour, and then we started seeing like where could there be a potential place for humor as well as inform, but then maybe a joke. And here's how we do this. Some information is given to you via argument. Siblings arguing, but they're also informing you about something because they're arguing over something to do with the tour. To make it interesting, to make it a little bit like theater as far as that goes.
You have to look for it,
Yeah, well, and not just dry spouting of like, this is the building on Music Row where Garth Brooks wrote his song, blah, blah, blah. There's tons of that stuff out there that, and some people might prefer that. That's fine. That's not what we're doing.
No, got to have comedy.
But a lot of it depends on the audience. We have 34 people in a full bus. There are 34 individuals sitting on that bus, and they are responding very viscerally to everything we say and do. Sometimes they're shouting questions. Sometimes they're they're doing all kinds of things. So we don't really have a script per se, because there's no point in having a script, because especially too, some of my humor and some of my improv is going to be, where you from, Finn? Oh, really? That's awesome. Well, what do you do there? That I would do a holler back to you later on where now Finn gets it, all this stuff. You're working, it's crowd work. It's essentially in the stand-up world. So this is, I said it's a hybrid of three things. It's not stand-up, it's not theater, and it's not purely comedy, and it's not purely musical, but it's a combination of all four of those things. So young people and people who are just starting out, absolutely start honing those skills. Find out what is your bliss. If you play an instrument, learn how to play it, master it. That is something I wish I had done earlier. I didn't start playing guitar until I've been playing for about 10 years. So not very long at all in the span of time that people play guitars.
Your Hallelujah cover sounded really good.
My what?
The Hallelujah cover.
Yeah, well,
you're playing the guitar and singing.
That helped. Garage band, you can do a lot of things.
I liked that a lot. I liked it.
Thank you very much. And that's on YouTube, actually.
It is, yeah.
I don't think I can even access that account anymore.
Oh, well, you can always download the video and re-upload it.
Oh, that's true too. I hadn't thought about that. Although I save most of them in the cloud. Most of the videos, I've recorded all kinds of very silly videos like that. Only those two, I don't know why. I think I sat down one day and thought, I'm going to start doing YouTube videos. And then I don't have the discipline to do that yet. Maybe I will get there. I'm not sure. I do plan on taking the Hank and Jenny tour. Absolutely has to be on TikTok. So,
oh please, yes,
we're going to start, and we've recorded quite a few videos that were just for promo. And the thing, they asked us for like 4 good ones or something like that. And so Jenny and I we just took my tripod and my iPhone, and I took a light tree, and we set up on the bus, and I said, let's just start going. Let's just go. And so we did all these promos, and then when it was done, I edited 14 of them.
Oh, wow.
And so because what I wanted to hear was one of these will fit what you want. But if nothing else, we just had so much fun doing them. And that's,
All
that's
of them will fit too.
Yeah. Any one of them would have actually fit for what they needed. And so I was really interested in seeing which one will you choose. I told them which 3 I thought were the best. And they did not choose one of those 3, which I thought they choose some. No, that was kind of a compliment. I was like, cool. You still liked
true.
Something that I didn't think was quite as good. You liked it the best.
That's true. Yeah, it just depends on how you take things. That's positive thinking.
Yeah, well, I try to.
And that's smart too, because obviously if they were also good, they could have gone with any of them.
Right. Let's see. And so for voiceover actors, I say this: start making your own stuff. Start absolutely doing your own animation. Start voicing things. I realized the other day, I had this epiphany. You'll enjoy this. My wife, her mother recently has transitioned into a nursing facility. She suffered a couple of strokes. She's doing very, very well considering her condition. But she's 85 years old. So she's up there. She knows where she is and who she is, and that's a blessing.
That's definitely good. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll pray for that.
Thank you. And she goes and my wife goes and sees her twice a week, which is awesome. And I go with her occasionally, go up and see her and everything. And I would go more often, but every time I go, she thinks she's going back home with us.
Oh.
So the past 2 times I've gone, I've had to explain to her that she was not coming home to us. And it broke my heart to see her very sad face when I said, "Oh no, Mama Joan, you can't come home with us." Anyway,
That's sweet.
It's very sweet. And where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. Went off the railroad because I went into that. We were talking about AI. Oh, voiceover acting, the future of voiceover. My wife was. We've been going through a bunch of old boxes and stuff from her mother's house. We've sold the house now, and we've got the boxes, some in storage, some at our house, and we're going through stuff and just like she's finding old childhood toys. We found puppets.
Ooh.
I found like a little dragon puppet, and
nice.
And I realized I could absolutely do a puppet show. I was like, oh, I don't, because I'd been thinking about animating or talking. I've got a couple of friends who are animators, but they're very busy. I started going, man, I would love to do some animation just because then I can do character voices. I don't have to worry about what age I am and what age I'm of the character I'm playing and everything.
That's true, yeah.
It's nice. The VOs. I can still at least voice a 30-year-old, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%.
Well, I could actually voice children still.
Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
It'll sound like an adult doing a child. No, I'm not going to do it right now.
No. So disappointed.
Not right now. No voices right now. I do old voices much better, but that's the thing. When I was a kid, when I was your age, I was a mimic. I'm a natural mimic in some way. I still have some of that, but I have lost it over the years a little bit too, because it's not a muscle I usually use. Because I was like, no, I'm going to be original and create a character. But I still absolutely sometimes I'll hear people's voices and I have to talk like them. And when I was young, when I was your age-ish, I would get in trouble with teachers because I would learn to mimic them. Their cadences, their vocal, qualities and stuff. That I would love to do impressions. And sometimes that was absolutely appreciated, and other times it was not.
Goes to the principal office, and you're like,
"Yeah." There was only one teacher who really just drove him crazy, and he had such an interesting. He had a little bit of a speech impediment, and I thought it was adorable. I liked the teacher a lot, and I was not making fun of him to be mean at all, but he was not comfortable with it, so I had to stop doing it.
No, but so you can develop character voices later on with that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I realized, there's an end run around the whole animation thing. If you've got socks, you can do voiceover for puppets.
That's
because
true.
You can make some sock puppets and call it a day. You can create. Well, heck, you can do a Zoom background or a background. There's lots of apps you can download and do green screen type stuff. They're getting better.
True.
If you've got a few dollars to throw at them, if you're going to do it frequently, if you've got a couple of dollars to throw at them, and a studio, like even I say studio, but really I'm talking about a corner in your house that encompasses maybe 6 square feet.
Really, all you need.
That's really all you need. I've seen people do smaller stuff, and I have a friend who's got a podcast, and they have you record yourself in a closet or wherever you are, and they literally record in the closet, and they lined it with pillows and all this stuff, so the background looks amazing.
Oh, nice.
And it also absorbs the sound, but they don't use anything more than their phone. I thought that was really funny, and that started during COVID. Yeah, started during COVID, of course. But the future of, I do kind of worry. AI actually is taking off with CGI of creating digital images that are almost indiscernible from reality. They're not quite there yet. But if you've seen Avatar, and if you've seen, things like that, that that's true. They still haven't gotten certain things down, but it's kind of freaky because they've brought back old stars, like people who have passed away. And, I'm like, I wonder, taking footage of them and built completely different performances. And that's going to proliferate. There will be more of that because somebody's going to go, oh my God, Fred Astaire was the most amazing dancer for his time. He's still unparalleled in many ways. If you watch an old Fred Astaire film of just, his dancing, it's incredible. He wasn't necessarily the best maybe for his time, but he was one of the greats for sure. And with CGI and AI, they will be able to build me Fred Astaire modern 2023, dancing to a pop tune. You could probably, create that.
Fred Astaire just rolls in his grave. It's like, no,
right?
No, don't make me dance to Cardi B. Stop.
Elvis Presley. There's all these stars that you could potentially resurrect.
They did something like that, like a holographic Michael Jackson concert or something.
Yes. Yeah. Well, recently, and this is a bit. I hope this isn't too morbid. I didn't consider it morbid. I thought it was really kind of cool, but at the same time, it was sort of funny. I'm in Nashville, so it's country music city, but it's also all different kinds of music. But however, one of the biggest stars, the Judds, Naomi Judd, who passed away not that long ago, and I was talking with my partner. Actually, we were talking about because we passed the place they went to church on Music Row. The I can't think of the name of the church. It's Belmont, maybe Belmont. I can't remember. But we passed that church on the way, and we pointed out and say that's where Naomi and Winona and Ashley Judd attended church when they were in town. But my partner was saying, she had gone and seen Winona in concert about a week or two after Naomi had passed. And, of course, she did some of her, Winona, they've been solo and separated for a while, but Winona did some of her songs, but she did some of hers and the Judd songs. And for a couple of those that were absolute duets with her mom, they put a recorded performance of her up on a video monitor, so that they were still you were getting to see them together again. Now, that was really her. It wasn't a computer-generated graphic.
Yeah.
But that's still technology making something possible. They probably used some pretty advanced software to thread that into the live performance. Because if you didn't know any better, you would have thought she was there.
That's true.
I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of pluses too. There's a few minuses. It's interesting now when I record because the difference between going from what do we call it? The digital, going from the analog world to the digital world, which I don't think you would have a conscious memory of the analog world, except for maybe as you experience it. It still exists. It's just not many people use it. So, like for example, old phones that you see, the old box phones that were just big old clunky pieces of plastic and stuff, and had a rotary dial on it, and all that stuff are foreign. And now, I mean, the kids that are younger than you are coming up, and they're going to be asking, because I don't see those phones anymore. I haven't had one in my own house for at least 30 years. Well, about 30 years. About 30 years is when those kinds of phones, because then they were moving over to the cordless phones, which if you watch old movies, movies from the 80s, 90s, that's what everybody had, was a fancy cordless phone. Ooh, a cordless phone. until we were absolutely with, the pre-smartphones, just cell phones, which that technology did not start off so smoothly.
And
of
it's
course,
not
those
going as smoothly as we'd like.
Right. Well, those were analog as well. The very first ones were analog. You would switch sometimes from analog to digital. But if you went into roaming, where the cell towers, and of course the network's much more sophisticated than it ever was back then. They barely existed back then. And so the first few cell phones that I owned, it would work right in the city and nowhere else. Pretty much if you got outside of the city, it stopped working. But all of that technology and all of that, I mean, will it absolutely replace humans? I don't know. We need to, like, for GPS, what's it called? GPS chat?
There's something like that. You mean like the AI thing where you put in
Yes, chat GPS.
but that's
not right.
GPS or GPN? I can't remember. It's one of those two.
Chat.
Let me see.
Here we go. Chat GPT. Thank you. Ooh, I knew that wasn't quite it. Chat GPT. GPT is a writing program, essentially. It's people are calling it AI, but when I've heard lettered people and people who are dedicated to the scientific study of these things explain it, I suddenly understood. She's fun. This is not AI. Chat GPTs or whatever it is called. I'm adding letters now. GPT. GPT. There it is. She said it's a writing program. So it's like, Finn's got a paper on, astrophysics due. And
you give me ideas. It's
yeah, right. You say what would be a good title for that paper? And you absolutely could have it where it would write the paper itself. And maybe it will write it. I mean, I don't know. Then it's you standing off to the side and, making it more you, I suppose. But I have not experienced this myself, but I am told, and from what I've read about people, the New York Times reporter who did 3 hours interview with the chatbot, but it's fascinating. I did not read his entire article. I read some of it though, and I lost focus, and I'm ADHD, so it's if it goes that way, I'm done. I'm on to something else. Yeah, I try to get back. I try to circle back to stuff like that. But in his interview, for no reason, it decided that it was in love with him. In this, writing program that he's interviewing, basically, it got really irate with him when he told him he was not leaving his wife, that he was actually happy with his wife. And by the end of it was so dark and dystopic and just awful.
Oh my gosh.
It was stalky and creepy, and it was interesting because it's not sentient. It is not AI. It could by no means could be called artificial intelligence. Yet it is a writing program that is creating from the resource that it has, which is basically the internet. Which what's not on the internet? Everything's on the internet.
Exactly.
It's all there. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all there. And so we give these these programs access to that, there's going to be some ironing out as far as that goes. And what I would say to that too is that there's nothing like live performance, and still the fanciest computer we have on the planet is the human brain.
It's true. That is true.
It is true. There's things that computers can do so much better, but I defy one to be. What they haven't seemed to pass on to them is humor yet, really.
Oh, that's true.
It's I say that, and then one of the first things that flashed before me I used to love, this is from a few years ago, but the memes that involved somebody using one of those fledgling writing programs to write a play. We told it to write a Terminator movie, and so a lot of it is just silly nonsense and fun. It comes across as great comedy. We read at the live show that I produced for a while. I used to get those scripts, and I would take them and we would just read them out loud as people, and they're absolutely just hysterically funny. Yeah, that's I try to remain optimistic because I think actually it's for the good. I don't know if we've explored all of the good yet. I think social media is the same way. I think social media will eventually be for the good, but I don't think we're done exploiting to find that good. I mean, we can certainly see some of the harmful things that are happening and are able to happen with the ability to mass communicate, for all of us to mass communicate. And it should be, who was that?
The dog just standing here yelling at me.
Oh, he sounded just like a human.
Let me see if I can
awesome.
get the camera to pick it up.
I thought I heard somebody go, hey.
Hey, come on, dog. I'll get the zoom background. Hold up. Let me see if I can just turn that off so you can see it. You're going to see a plate of pasta there, too. Hold
What's
on.
his name?
Sophie.
Oh, her name. Sophie.
Let's see. Hold up. Virtual filter off. And I'll let you say hi to Sophie. Sophie keeps walking in and out of the room, then deciding that
hi,
she
Sophie.
doesn't want to be in the room. Hold up. Let's see if I can just turn the filter off. 1 second. Shoot. See, technology. Like, I should know this stuff.
No, it makes me feel better that you're not.
There we go.
That you're struggling just a little bit.
Sophie.
There she is. Oh,
there we go.
She's beautiful. Look at her. Hi, Sophie.
Just trying to get some of that pasta.
Yeah.
So she came in the room as we were recording.
Yeah, right on.
And I was just like feeding her pasta to keep her quiet, and I stopped giving her pasta because I'm going to run out. I won't have my dinner.
The payoff. The payoff.
Exactly. So as soon as I stopped, she just went ah.
That's amazing. I love. And what breed is she?
She is she's like a pit bull lab mix.
I was gonna say she's got a little. I love that mix though. Those mixes of I've got nieces and nephews who have animals that are similar, and they're just such sweet dogs.
Oh, she's super sweet.
Yeah. They're just such good dogs and good protectors too, but usually generally really sweet as long as you're sweet with them.
Exactly, yeah, and maybe not always so bright,
and maybe not always super like Mensa level bright.
Not what's it? Chat GPT bright,
Chat GPT bright. Right on. So I think we covered all your questions. The three questions I will ask are: what are the goals and aspirations in your line of work? We went over that. Advice for people aspiring to do what you do. This is what we do at the end of our tour too. We decided that the last 10-minute ride back to the place, people had to use the bathroom, things like that. We sang a song. We tried singing songs, and we did Q&A, which went okay. But we decided to do a recap of the entire tour. So we hit the highlights and asked people what they are going to remember, and we give them a little test on things they learned, which was a big hit. We've only done that once so far. And if you feel like your hopes in VeggieTales' future, I hope they keep producing them and employing people and entertaining people.
Bring back Chog.
What's that?
I said bring back Chog.
Bring back Chog. We'll start a campaign. That'll bring back, and it's got to be the guy who originally did it. Nobody else.
Yes, exactly. Don't recast Chog. Come on.
That's. I find the memes about the Chog, of course, is based on Chuck Norris, except for he's Scottish, and Chuck Norris is not Scottish. But I enjoy the memes about that Chuck Norris, especially when he participates himself, about how tough Chuck Norris is. He's apparently very tough.
A tough guy, yeah, strong guy.
Well, I was probably about your age the very first time I ever saw a Chuck Norris film. He was in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. And of course, we all wanted to know. Bruce Lee was amazing, but we all wanted to know who that guy was that fought with Bruce Lee and held his own for a little while. He did not win that fight, I don't think.
We'll see, but he was just starting. Nowadays he'd win every fight times 2.
Bruce Lee was the star of that picture for sure. That is the way it goes.
As soon as I hang up, I'll think of. No, I love it. It's absolutely wonderful. I think as soon as I hang up, I'll think of 5 more questions and be like, shoot.
You can always write me.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to be in contact with you. It's absolutely
awesome.
Amazing. Such a great honor.
Me too, you. It's good. I've got my youngest nieces and nephews are now in their 30s. So they're some of them are starting to have kids, but I don't have a lot of contact. I used to be so in contact with a lot of youth. Now I'm either relegated to watching them, secondhand on TikTok and things like that. So it's nice to talk to them and hear their thoughts because I want to know what young people think about stuff. There's a lot of really talented musicians.
There truly musicians.
Especially I tend towards bluegrass and things like that. I like some old country music and I love bluegrass music, and I will sit and listen to just about any. And this town has so many amazing singer-songwriters and very creative peoples. And so my first experience when I was theatrical experience I saw here, because of the plethora of access. I mean, there's good guitar players exist in every town all over America. Really good ones, actually. So you don't need to have Nashville level ones. But the first time I saw just a dude with a guitar and another guy with a memorized script, and he underscored the entire like 45-minute monologue
Oh my gosh.
that this guy did. And I was aware of the music, but not aware of the music. The music mostly lent itself to what was being said, what was being performed. And if music takes us to a whole nother level of understanding that art. It
sure.
lends itself to the spoken form of art, which is what this guy was doing. It was a monologue. It was a, I don't know why I'm not just saying what it was. Well, because I can't remember who wrote it.
That's fun.
Very famous writer though.
Chat GPT.
Long passed away. Well, Truman Capote. You could ask Chat GPT to actually write me a story in the style of Truman Capote.
It probably could too.
Absolutely. Truman Capote wrote most famously In Cold Blood, which was sort of based on a true story, and I've never read it. It's amazing, but I have read other stuff of his. But he did one called A Christmas Memory, and it is the most. It does not matter. It's so American because it wouldn't. If it sort of leans towards the Sophie. It's
Good,
okay.
Sophie, come on.
I'll shut up in a minute. I promise. It leans towards it leans towards the South, but it's absolutely Americana. Like no matter where you're from, if you have any connection with rural America, you'll get it. And there's so many different voices in it because it's based on Truman Capote's actual childhood as he was visiting with an elderly aunt. And you think that sounds like it would be boring. At least I did before I saw it the first time. And I saw it and it's performed so well in the music. And by the end of it, you're in tears.
Oh,
yeah, it's one of those that, it's Christmas and it's exploiting the sentimentality of Christmas, but also to the sentimentality of ages gone by, of, and traditions and things like that. This specifically was written around a tradition of making fruitcake. What's so funny is the way I hear her when she does that, it sounds like somebody going, hey, every single time. So I'm going, who's your little friend, Finn?
She's just very vocal,
I saw this a meme that I really enjoyed was the woman talking about her 3-year-old's face when her 3-year-old asked for a pet. And she explained they have a dog. And she said, well, the dog, what do you think the dog is? The dog's a pet. And she saw her 3-year-old's face as a 3-year-old comprehended that was actually a pet and not just another guy that lived in their house.
It's like, hold on, wait a minute.
That blew the 3-year-old's mind. I'm like, oh, I've never thought about that as being a pet,
That's why the words aren't making any sense.
Right. Now I understand.
Well, she's getting some pasta, so she'll be quiet now.
Yeah, right on. Well, that's making me hungry. I'm gonna have to go fix my own pasta. There you go. You're very, very fortunate. Never forget that. I too
sure.
was that fortunate. I had really lovely parents and my mom cooked for me. I was so ungrateful at the time. I did get to make it up years later as an adult and thank her. But it was, it's a canard of a thing, but they'll say, when your parents are the smartest, when you're 6 years old, your parents are the smartest people you've ever met. When you're 15, they're the dumbest people you've ever met. And then when you're 25, they're smart again,
It's an ebb and flow,
Yeah, and that's, as a broad generality, it's kind of true. Except for for the most part, got along with my parents most of the time. There was a couple rocky things, that happened when I was your age-ish, about what I wanted to do.
That was my 2023 interview with Henry Haggard, and I know it cut off kind of suddenly, but that was all the recording I had, which is why archiving's so important. I don't think I had any more recorded. I'm pretty sure the recording shut off, or I'd shut it off at that point. But you really do have to keep up with stuff and make sure you don't lose content. But fantastic guy. Thanks again to Henry Haggard for making this happen. I'm happy to make this interview, or these 2 interviews, available to the world again. And stay tuned for a couple brand new interviews coming up.
Does my microphone sound okay? Am I using the right one?
Oh yeah.
My computer gives me like 6 different options with like speaker and microphone and all that stuff, and I'm always, trying to make sure
You
I've
were
got
really
it right.
hot over here. I had to turn you down just a tiny bit.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me see if it's.
Oh no, that's good. Oh, except for I should be hearing you through my headphones. I just realized.
No point in having in if and now I'm getting texts. I don't usually do this on my computer, so I'm like, whoa, okay.
Fancy.
We have a lot going here. Very fancy, very fancy.
I was in an
Well,
interview
hello,
with someone. Somebody figured out like how to use the camera panning thing where it like follows your face when you move. And I was on an interview with them when they figured it out, and they were like, "This is so cool! Look at this!" And they were like moving all around their room, and the camera was. I was like, "Yes, that's really cool."
Please stop playing with the technology, sir. Sir.